The wind outside the small apartment was harsh, sending icy gusts against the windows, but inside, it was eerily quiet. Snowflakes drifted gently past the window, as if nature itself was holding its breath. At exactly 3:02 a.m., the silence was shattered by the shrill ringing of a phone. On the other end of the line, David Edwards' voice trembled with panic. "I didn't mean to, I swear. It was an accident. She's gone. I didn't mean to, but I lost control." David, a mechanic who spent most of his time under greasy car hoods, never imagined his life would take such a dark turn. The words hung in the air, chilling him to the bone. His mother, Eleanor Edwards, was dead. But even more unsettling, unbeknownst to him, every last moment had been captured. The truth, as it often does, was hiding in plain sight, waiting for the world to discover it. David Edwards had always been a man of few words. At 32, he was familiar to everyone at the local garage, but he kept his life largely to himself. His hands were stained with oil and grime, and the grease under his fingernails had become as much a part of him as the tension that constantly sat behind his eyes. He was quiet, but in that silence, there was something more, a deep reservoir of unresolved frustration. His mother, Eleanor, had once been his rock. She had raised him alone after his father's death, a strong woman with sharp eyes and a quick wit. But the years had not been kind to Eleanor. She had grown frail, and her health had slowly deteriorated, leaving her weak, dependent, and, for the first time in her life, in need of her son. David, once the boy who had looked up to her, was now suffocated by the weight of caring for her. What had started as a caring son looking after his aging mother had morphed into an emotional prison. His mother's once vibrant and independent spirit was now a constant demand. She relied on him for everything: meals, medicine, and emotional support. She needed him, and that need never stopped. But it wasn't just her dependency that had begun to suffocate David. Over the years, Eleanor's affection had turned into something more: possessive, smothering. She wouldn't let him have friends. She wouldn't let him leave the house for too long. Every moment of David's life seemed to be tethered to her. Her needs, her fears, her inability to let go. It had worn him down. David had become a prisoner in his own life, trapped between duty and resentment. He wanted out, but there was no way to escape. No way to tell his mother the truth, that he couldn't live like this anymore. It was a cold February night when everything broke. David had come home after a long day at the garage, the oil on his hands a bitter reminder of a life that seemed as though it would never change. The apartment was quiet, except for the faint sound of Eleanor's breathing as she sat in her wheelchair near the window, staring out into the snow. "David," she called softly, "can you help me with the dishes? Please, I can't do it. I've been waiting for you." Her words had a desperation to them, a pleading that David had heard too many times. He closed the door behind him and walked into the living room. The familiar smell of Eleanor's perfume, roses and lavender, lingered in the air, but it no longer offered comfort. Instead, it seemed to press down on him, reminding him of the years of sacrifice that felt increasingly unjust. David didn't answer immediately. He stood there for a moment, his chest tight with frustration. "Why can't you do it yourself, Mom?" he muttered under his breath. He knew the words were harsh, but they escaped before he could stop them. Eleanor's face fell. She had always been kind, always tried to be understanding. But in that moment, her need for him overwhelmed her. She reached out her frail hand toward him, trembling. "David, please, you're all I have now. Don't leave me like this. She needs me. She needs me." The words reverberated in David's mind, the words that had haunted him for years. His hands clenched into fists as he fought to keep his anger in check. But it was too much. His body moved on its own. Without thinking, he pushed the wheelchair hard. The wheels screeched as the chair skidded across the floor. Eleanor gasped, the shock on her face momentarily registering before she fell backward, her body hitting the floor with a sickening thud. The room seemed to stand still. David stood frozen for a moment, his breath shallow. Then he rushed to her side. Her body lay there, unmoving, Her head was twisted at an unnatural angle, her eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. There was no pulse. There was no movement. She was gone. David's stomach churned as the panic set in. What had he done? This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. This wasn't his plan. He fumbled with his phone, dialing 911, his voice trembling as he spoke the words, "She's gone. I didn't mean to. It was an accident. Please, help." The investigation began with the usual questions. How had it happened? What had led to the fall? David told the officers that it had been an accident, that he had lost control in the heat of the moment. He seemed genuinely distressed, his voice cracking as he explained what happened. But the officers weren't convinced. They started asking deeper questions. The neighbor across the hall had a security camera that overlooked the parking lot. They asked for the footage just in case. It was the footage that would expose everything. The camera, positioned just outside their building, had captured the entire sequence of events. As the police watched the video, they could see David approaching his mother, but the camera didn't capture an accidental shove. It captured something far darker, a deliberate push, a violent shove that sent Eleanor's wheelchair crashing backward. And it didn't stop there. David was seen shoving her again, harder this time, his face filled with a twisted mix of frustration and anger. The video revealed a side of David that no one had ever seen. The rage that had built up over the years of resentment, years of feeling trapped, had finally boiled over. And Eleanor had paid the price. When David was shown the footage, his face drained of color. The weight of his actions hit him harder than any of the police officers' questions. His voice trembled as he tried to explain himself, but the words came out in broken fragments. "I didn't know," he whispered, his shoulders slumping under the weight of his guilt. "I didn't know it was that bad." But the truth was there in the footage. His anger, unchecked and explosive, had led to her death, and no amount of regret could undo what he had done. David was arrested that evening, charged with manslaughter. As the investigation continued, the police uncovered more about David's life. They interviewed neighbors, friends, and even co-workers at the garage. What they learned painted a picture of a man who had been living in isolation. David had been withdrawing from friends and family, becoming more and more reclusive. His resentment towards his mother had been building for years, but no one had known how deep it truly ran. Eleanor's death, though tragic, revealed a deeper tragedy. A son who had never learned to confront his emotions, a man who had spent years in silent pain, trying to live up to expectations that were never his own. He had been living in an emotional prison for so long that when the walls finally caved in, the destruction was inevitable. The media covered the case extensively. David, once seen as a quiet mechanic, was now the subject of a nationwide debate about the pressures of caregiving, the emotional toll it takes on family members, and the often ignored signs of mental health struggles. The investigation revealed that David had been under immense pressure for years, pressure that, in the end, had manifested in a tragic and irreversible act. David faced his trial, but the consequences of his actions would echo for the rest of his life. The quiet mechanic who had once been so ordinary was now a man who had crossed a line that could never be undone. As the camera pulled away from the courtroom, the words echoed once again. Sometimes, the most horrific crimes are committed in silence, and sometimes the signs are there long before anyone notices. If you were captivated by this chilling story and want to dive deeper into the world of real crime, hidden truths, and unsolved mysteries, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Join our growing community of true crime enthusiasts and stay up to date with every new gripping story we uncover. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Every story is a journey into the unknown, and we want you with us every step of the way. Be part of the conversation and share your thoughts. What would you have done in David's shoes? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and remember, sometimes the most shocking truths are the ones we never see coming.